I'm trying to like tone myself down because that whole week I'm gonna be like, fuck Notre Dame. We're gonna beat their ass. PTA.
We have our clip for social now.
Yeah, we have our clip for the social media. Um, all right, Dan, you ready? Ready to get into this?
Let's talk AAC.
All right. So our first team on the list is my nemesis in NCAA 14 is Tulsa, the Tulsa Golden Showers. I mean, Hurricanes. And
Moving on.
I'm a little surprised that they are ranked so low in like everything.
They have a very small class, like a tiny class.
Yeah. And so I don't know, 11th in the AAC, 127th nationally, 116th was their previous rank, and they don't currently have a rank for 2022. Phil Montgomery came into the 2020 season on a bit of a hot seat. Sports Illustrated had him as one of 9 coaches that could be on the hot seat, and that list had 4 of their 9 coaches on that list ended up getting fired. So,
well, he saved his butt with a great season.
Yeah, he sure did. He sure did. I mean, they were 6-3 with their only losses coming to Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, and Mississippi State. And for having the level of recruiting that they did quite well. And they played all of those teams very close. I think they only lost those games by like a combined score of like 10 or 15.
Yeah.
At the most. I mean, it was very, 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 very close to being undefeated, essentially.
It seemed like they were just an annoying team to play. Like if you were the other team, it was just annoying to play them.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Their fans were extremely annoying throughout the entire season as well. I'm calling you the fuck out, Tulsa. Y'all are annoying.
You calm down.
No, they are annoying. Cincinnati had to cancel their first game for COVID reasons. Actually, I think it might have been Tulsa and them had COVID things, and then they had their second game canceled, which would have decided who had conference championship hosting privileges, and their fans just were rabid on Cincinnati, saying that Cincinnati didn't want to play them. And it's like, I'm sorry, but I don't think anyone cares about you.
No. Everybody's just confused why they're called the Golden Hurricane when they're located in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I do not understand.
Research on it once, and I don't care to explain it because I don't like Tulsa. And
okay, fair enough.
My impartiality is kind of. Actually, I have a preferred team in Tulsa. It's Oral Roberts.
Okay.
And so I just don't like Tulsa. I don't see them repeating their success this year unless they're just once again really annoying.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to have faith in Philip Montgomery moving forward.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a good season this year.
I think it was a fluke.
They played. It must have been something they just rallied together because, like I said, they played annoying, they played tough, they played hard, and they got 6-3. The last 4 years before that, they were 4-8, 3-9, 2-10. Or 3 years before that, 4-8, 3-9, 2-10. They did have a 10-3 season in Philip Montgomery's first year, but since then it's all kind of been downhill.
Yep. It's just like that. He's not inspired a lot of confidence. He's had like a good season here and there, and maybe for Tulsa that's enough. But it also feels like maybe that's not enough because they have a really small budget. So like they need to be winning games in order for that program to really sustain itself. It's a small school. Mm-hmm. So
and I mean, if you're going to put Oral Roberts ahead of them, they're probably the 4th biggest school in their state then.
True facts. I mean, Tulsa.
They're not smaller than Orlando.
They are the smallest. I'm pretty sure they're the smallest school in FBS football.
I don't know. Like in terms of what? Like enrollment?
Enrollment. Yeah. I think they only have like 3,500 students in their enrollment.
I'll check that. You want to get into their schedule?
Yeah. While you're doing that, I have their schedule pulled up. They have UC Davis, the Aggies, at home to start the season September 2nd. And then they once again play at Oklahoma State. So they got the away series going. So they got the dick of that schedule. And then they get another OSU in Ohio State.
Tough back-to-back there.
And back-to-back OSUs. And then they get to go have Butch Jones and the Arkansas State Red Wolves join them in Tulsa.
That'll be an interesting game.
Yeah, I think that'll be an interesting game. I think they have a chance to win that one. I think then they have Houston, then Memphis. I think that of those two games, they're more likely to beat Houston. I think Memphis is going to be pretty good this year. Then they have South Florida at South Florida, so they get to go play in an empty NFL stadium.
Yeah.
So I think they could win that. So we're looking at now being 4-3. And then they've got Navy, and I never know how to judge Navy because sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
The last few years, it's been the not.
We'll get into Navy a little bit later.
So then they have Cincinnati, and I think Cincinnati is clearly the better team there. They could maybe give Cincinnati some trouble. They've got a game at Tulane, and I think Tulane takes that. Then they beat Temple. And then they've got a game at SMU. So I think they could win. They could be bowling this year, potentially. And I think that would be...
That'd be outstanding if they get to another bowl game.
Yeah, it'd be outstanding.
I looked it up. There's nothing exact. I found a website that said it's Air Force, and they said they had an enrollment of like 4,000. So I Googled Tulsa's enrollment, and it's like 3,700. So I guess it is Tulsa. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's Tulsa just based off the U.S. Education Bureau's number.
Yeah.
That I was looking at a while back.
All right. I got nothing else on Tulsa.
I don't either.
You want to talk about Temple Owls?
Not really.
I mean, I kind of do. I kind of find them slightly interesting. They're in the best. Yeah. I think they're in the golden era of Temple football, if that's a thing. What? I looked it up. Okay, listen to this. You ready for this? Past 10 to 12 years, in my opinion, have been the best in Temple history. From 1930 to 2008, they made 2 bowl games, a total of 2 bowl games. Since 2009, they've made 7. They've also had several notable head coaches that have moved on to bigger and better things, but they got their start as a head coach at Temple. Matt Rule, obviously, went to Baylor. Now he's in the NFL. Al Golden, who was the first guy to put Temple on the map. He went to Miami. Didn't really succeed at Miami, but he got a bigger job. And then, of course, Manny Diaz. He didn't even coach a game, and then he got a bigger job.
Yep.
That's what the Temple name does.
Program does for you.
Yeah.
Just be accepted as their head coach, and you'll get a better job. Maybe you guys should
immediately
hire me.
Yes.
Yeah. So I definitely think they're interesting. They're another small school. They're a private school. And I think being a private school competing at this level provides you with a certain level of disadvantage unless you're a private school that has a ton of money. And I do think that their lack of facilities and lack of stadium does hurt them, because when you're playing to a empty stadium, it's hard to recruit these kids to come watch you and be excited about coming to play for Temple.
Philadelphia is just not a college town. Like it's a professional sports town.
It's a professional sports town. But I think that could be helped if they had their own stadium. Because if it was on campus, which is hard because it's in the middle of Philadelphia. So like, where are you going to put it? So they're at a disadvantage there. That being said, I will admit that, yeah, they've had some recent success. I don't really see that continuing now. It's hard.
I agree. I think I tend to agree. I don't know if Rod
just
Carey
like
is a great
poor
coach.
recruiting. They're following in recruiting. Their previous ranked class was 102. Now they're 117.
They got up as high as 59th. They were 59th in the country in recruiting in 2016. I think that was Matt Rule's first year.
Jeez. And they were 1-6 in 2020. I don't know. It doesn't feel good. Not to say that they could surprise me. I'd be all right if they surprised me. And honestly, like they invest in their programs and they've had success in athletics before. So it's not as if it's a bad program. It's just you have some disadvantages that other schools don't have, and that makes it hard to win consistently.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I that's really all I had to say on Temple. What I spewed off at there at the beginning is that I believe that these past 10 years is about as good as it's ever going to get for Temple.
Yeah, I mean, they do have a favorable non-conference schedule. I wouldn't say it's an easy non-conference schedule, but it's favorable to them. They should be favored in 2 of their 4 games. They play at Akron, or they play at Rutgers to start the season. I don't think they'll be favored. I think Rutgers will be favored here and will probably win. But I could see Rutgers and Temple having like a decent game. I could see that being a good game.
It's a good regional rivalry kind of game.
I agree. And then they go to Akron. They should win that.
Should 100%.
They have Boston College, which I don't know how Boston College is going to be. I haven't really looked into them all that much. And I mean, they were good last year. They gave Clemson the run for their money, but then they lost games they shouldn't have. Yeah. So
I feel like that's always Boston College, though.
Yeah, like, I feel the same. So that could be a close game, toss up kind of game. And then they have the Wagner Seahawks. So they should win that game. And then unfortunately they start with Memphis and then Cincinnati, who I think are probably the two strongest teams going into this year for the Americans. So you kind of get, I don't know. I don't see how they escape with 2 wins, 2 conference wins. Even if they beat one of those 2, you're still kind of being knocked out of contention for the American Athletic Conference Championship. You do get a little bit of a reprieve at USF, but then you go down. You have to go. You have Central Florida coming to town, and despite their, I think they've fallen off a little bit, but I think they're still one of the better teams in the conference. Eastern Carolina, Houston, they're at Tulsa, then they host Navy for their final game. Mm-hmm. So it'll be an interesting season for them. I could see them winning 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 games. Maybe they'll surprise me and win a 7th.
6 is a little high.
Yeah, 6 is high, but like 6 is what you're like really hoping for.
You go 6-6, you're thrilled.
Yeah. Yes. I agree.
All right, Navy, the midshipmen.
Ship. Midshipmen.
I said ship.
Yes, the midshipmen.
Not shit.
I like Navy. What can I say? I really liked that they joined the American Athletic Conference. I thought that it made a lot of sense to me. And then, they've kind of fallen off these last few years. I'm not really sure why that is. I think it's partially because Army and Navy tend to recruit like kind of the same kids.
And Army kind of has got it these past 5 years.
Army has really taken it over. So I think that kind of maybe is the reason that they've had a bit of a falling off, because let's be honest, Army and Navy, they could lose every game and then go play the Army Navy game, and their coach could win every single game and be getting contracts extensions if they would just beat the other team.
Yeah.
So
do you want to go ahead and pronounce the coach's last name?
No.
You sure?
I'm positive. I'm gonna leave you to butcher that.
Let's just call him Coach Ken. How about that?
All right. Yeah. All right. Go on with what you have to say.
Coach Ken entering his 14th season. There were some rumors this offseason that he was considering taking the Arizona job, which would have been interesting. I would have liked to maybe see that in a Power 5. I guess we kind of see it in Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech's Georgia Tech. Arizona is a little bit more exciting of a program. The past 20 years have been just about as good as it gets as if you're a Navy football fan nowadays. Yep. I mean, they won 14 in a row, I think, against Army.
Yep.
And then they've skid, like they've hit a bad spell these past 5 years. They've lost 4 out of 5 to Army now. So like you were saying earlier with the recruiting, it's so difficult to recruit because like they're pretty much at their ceiling right now in terms of recruiting, I think. Which I don't know if we mentioned that they're 103rd ranked class this year. That's the last couple of years they were in the 120s, but consistently they're usually around that 100 mark. I don't know if Coach Ken plans on staying here for the rest of his career or moving on. I think it'll just be another coach moving in, just continue, because these Army Navy schools, they're just going to run the same offense every year, and they're never really going to change. So I can't ever get excited about these schools.
Something that's I actually really like watching military football.
I can get down for Army Navy. That's it.
I love watching Army play games in the regular season. I think last year they had a couple games where the quarterback didn't throw a single pass.
See, I don't like that.
And while I don't like that generally, I find it extremely entertaining because it's like, oh, is he going to throw a pass? No, he's not.
He's not.
And I don't know. There's something about it that it does lure me in, and it makes me entertained to watch. And I do think that both the service academies have been better over the last 10 years than they really have been since the 40s.
I agree.
And I think that they are at their height.
Well, Navy more than Army. Army was pretty bad there for those 14 years.
Okay, but for the last 5 years,
yes.
Army has been a very solid team.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking last year. I don't know what their record was, but Navy didn't do so well last year. They had some games that they lost and they shouldn't have. I think they played BYU to start the season and got blown out, which BYU was good, but I didn't think Navy should have gotten wrecked by BYU.
Army went 9-3 last year.
Yeah, so I mean, 9-3 last year. That's pretty darn good, if you ask me, for a military academy. But I don't know.
Navy
moving forward.
Navy won a couple years of winning 10 games.
Yeah, they did.
Didn't they? Yeah, they went 11-2 last year, or 2019, 11-2 2015, 10 wins 2009. I guess okay, never mind. That kind of makes sense. Just 10 wins every so often,
But it's solid. I mean, it's solid, and that's all you can ask for being a Navy fan.
Yeah.
You can't ask for much more. They've got Marshall, which that'll be fun. It's at Navy. Then they host the Air Force Academy, so that's another good one. Then they head off to Houston, and then they host Central Florida. That'll be a fun game. They host SMU. Kind of have favorable. They're getting to host a lot of the tougher teams in the conference.
They got a really difficult stretch. We were talking about the Temple stretch to start their season. They start their conference play, at least, because they do have the at Notre Dame game going in the middle.
Five best teams in the conference. They have Houston, Central Florida, SMU, Memphis, and Cincinnati. They do
all right in a row.
Only two of those teams are away games. So like they did luckily draw the home bit. So I honestly think they could win 2 of those 5.
I can see that.
With 3 of them being at home, I could see them taking 2 of the home games and then losing the other 3. And then they're at Tulsa, and then they play the Fighting Irish. So that's a tough game for them.
Matchup
they
of the
play
Golden
them every
Helmets.
year. And then they have East Carolina, then they're at Temple, and then they have the Army Black Knights.
Mm-hmm. Traditionally in the second week of December, I believe, second weekend of December.
December 11th is when it's being played.
Yeah. I kind of have a comment on it. Kind of screws them over playing that game so late because bowl games are decided by that point. So like if you're going into that and say Army's 5 and 6 and they need to win that game, but the bowl game's already decided. So like, I don't know. There's kind of a comment.
Well, there's something built in for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's a couple bowls where they like have it set up as like Army. If they're 6 and 6, they get it. If not, there's a contingency.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense.
Contingency team. And then Navy, they've discussed it a couple times because there was an instance in which Navy was really close to winning their division of the American Athletic and being in the conference championship game. And then it was going to be like, well, then they go and play Army next. And it's like, well, that's kind of weird.
It's kind of weird. Yeah.
But it ended up not being that big of an issue because they didn't win it. So they weren't in the game. But all right. That is something to talk about and think about for sure.
Yeah. ECU, right. Eastern Carolina.
Pirates. So they've got the 97th ranked recruiting class. So we've broke 100.
Down considerably.
Yes.
Since the last 5 years.
Yes. They are 8th in the AAC. And I don't know. I'm hopeful that this team can start to climb the long road back to winning, but I'm not confident. I think that Mike Houston is a competent coach and
the national championship winning coach.
Yes, at JMU. I believe he's one of the only people that have beat North Dakota State in a national championship game. So I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad coach. He's actually a very good coach. And I think that they're recruiting closer to the middle of the pack, like even if they fell off quite a bit this year, they're still in the middle of the pack for the conference. And they've had some games in the last 2 years that make it look like they can compete with other American Athletic Conference teams. It's just, I'm not sure where they're at. They played last year at Cincinnati, and I remember this game like pretty.
They gave Cincinnati a scare, didn't they?
No, not this past year. Cincinnati blew them out by a lot. Cincinnati walked into that game and they like the punter. I think it was like the last time that he was going to be on Cincinnati's field, so he called his own play. Like Cincinnati's punter like called his own like fake punt. Luke Fickell didn't even know it was going to happen, and it actually worked. Like he ran it for like 25 yards to get the first down, and barely got the first down, and it like really upset Eastern Carolina, and like the coach and Luke Fickell had words after the game, and Luke Fickell
looks like hey man, I didn't know he was
exactly. Like Luke Fickell's like, yeah man, like I don't know, man. I didn't call that. Yeah. But then there was like multiple times, like there were a couple 90-yard runs that UC made in that game for touchdowns, and it was one kid, he was a freshman, was just put in the game to like run out the clock, and rattled off a 97-yard touchdown. And it's like, well, at this point, stop them. Like you can't complain about losing if you can't stop a freshman from running,
or a punter for running 20 yards.
I'm sorry, but and it's like that kind of attitude that kind of gets me thinking like maybe this team isn't where it needs to be.
I'm not optimistic on East Carolina.
I'm not either.
I think they're pretty much the worst team in the AAC right now. It's them or South Florida, in my opinion. They're both in a pretty rough state. And you think about it, East Carolina just 4 or 5 years ago was like, or a little bit more than that. They were like one of the most exciting offenses in the country.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name, but they had that lefty quarterback who threw for a bunch of yards. They had Zay Jones, who went on to the NFL to do nothing, but he's still like set.
Yeah, I mean, they were a solid team. I think that they also have like the facilities that they should be recruiting very well. Their stadium is one of the nicest stadiums in the American. They have such
they're in a good location. They're in Carolina. Like there's recruits to be had in that area.
Yep. And like, I don't know why they're not doing well. They should be, but they aren't. I feel a little bit more optimistic than you just because of Mike Houston, but that only gets you so far.
Yeah. Interesting start to their schedule this year. They play the game in Charlotte at Panthers Stadium against Appalachian State, which is a fun game. Then they play South Carolina at home, which is another fun game. At Marshall, and then Charleston Southern finishes off their non-conference schedule. They open home to Tulane. Then they
I think there's a chance they could beat South Carolina.
I mean, yeah.
I think South Carolina's that bad.
I definitely don't think they beat App State, but I think South Carolina wins that game just because they should win that game. And I really, like I said before, I don't think East Carolina's gonna be that good this year. Where was I? Tulane to open their conference schedule. Then they play at UCF and at Houston. So difficult back-to-back on the road there. Then they got South Florida and Temple at home. So a nice little break. Their schedule sets up nicely for them to get their wins, easy wins, and then they go on the road to Memphis and then at Navy, and then they finish the season home to Cincinnati.
I think that's going to be a potential letdown game for Cincinnati.
You better hope that they got the AAC wrapped up by that point.
I am hoping that they will, but last few times UC has played at East Carolina, they have escaped by the skin of their teeth.
Is that the game I was thinking of in 2019?
Yeah.
Is that when East Carolina gave them a scare?
Okay. Yeah, East. Well, it was in 2018 and 2019.
Okay.
They gave them a scare because 2018, I think, was the season that UC was playing in Paul Brown Stadium because their stadium was under construction, and then 2019 they played at Eastern Carolina, and both of those games ended up being decided by a field goal to like end the game. It was like a walk-off field goal on both.
I think I remember watching the 2019 game.
Yeah, I've watched both those games. And background for anyone that hasn't watched, I know this conference probably better than any of the other conferences because I've watched all of these teams play Cincinnati over the last 3 years. Pretty closely. So you ready to move on to our next team?
Yeah, this is going to be my major disappointment of this season. The Houston Cougars.
Really?
I don't think they're going to be the worst team, obviously. I said East Carolina, South Florida, those probably the two worst, but I am not excited about Dana Holgorsen and this Houston team right now.
Okay.
They're the 83rd class. They're the 83rd ranked class nationally for 2021. Past couple years, it's down. They were 72nd, 73rd, 73rd, 69th, 36th in 2016. They had the 36th ranked class. Their record has gone down every year since Dana Holgorsen has arrived, and I'm starting to think, if you think about Dana Holgorsen, what's like one of the first things that comes to you just about him, like if you look at him, it's like, oh, that's a crazy person. And I'm not sure if him and his style and his personality works with recruits nowadays. Like, I don't envision that. I think this trend of downward trajectory on their recruiting classes, I think it's going to continue. Maybe the records kind of flattens out because they still got talent. They're still going to be one of the better talent-wise teams in the conference. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on Houston?
So here's my thoughts on Houston. I feel some type of way.
Okay.
They have everything that they need to win on a consistent basis and challenge for AAC championships. I think they should be one of the best teams in the American and should be competing every single year.
Yes.
By far, they have the most money of any team in the conference. They've got the oil money down there.
Mm-hmm.
Former Southern Conference or Southwestern Conference with all those oil schools.
Oh, yeah.
And so I even think like there's potential with the infrastructure laid at Houston that if the team was halfway decent, if a Power 5 conference decided that they wanted to expand, Houston should be at the top of your list.
Like Big 12, if they ever want to get back to 12 teams, I think
yes,
Houston's got to be the first one.
Houston would be my first team for the Big 12. But Dana Holgorsen, in my opinion, is a good coach. And they have the money to hold on to him, but I think he needs to start winning. So his first season, we knew they were going to be bad, and he planned them to be bad. He sat players. He sat like 8 of his 13 seniors intentionally. He redshirted them so that they would be better the next year when he had recruits that he wanted. And then his second season was 2020, and it was,
even worse than the first season.
Even worse. I also think that Houston they played like they were supposed to start their season, and then they ended up not playing till like 75 days later because of COVID. So I think this was a team that was really affected by COVID. So I'm kind of right now, for me, I'm taking 2020 with a grain of salt. So his first 2 years for me are kind of a wash. I don't know what this team is going to look like. The president of the university, prior to hiring Dana Holgorsen, did say that Houston is a football school, and they will be, and I quote, they will fire coaches over 8-4 seasons because 8-4 seasons are not good enough.
You see the record the last 2 years?
Yeah.
4-8, 3-5.
Yeah. So
they're a basketball school. They just made the Final Four.
So I think that there is a good chance that they're better this year. I don't think that they will be 8-4 though. So
I see them. I have them pegged at 6-6, 7-5, something like that.
Yeah, let me take a look at their schedule. Let's see how many games I think are winnable.
Well, they should start 4-0. They should start 4-0.
Should start 4-0.
They have a neutral site game against Texas Tech to open the season. Then they play at Rice,
and then home to
Grambling State, and then they play at UConn. Which, if anybody loses to UConn this year, that's later in the season.
The game is
the UConn game is later this season.
Yeah, it's actually November 27th. It's their final regular season.
Yeah, I forgot. I just have it listed
out. Non-conference, they should win all 4 games. They should win all 4 of those games. I think that they have a chance to beat Navy. So we'll put that at like 5. I think they have a chance to beat Tulsa. So there's your 6. I don't think they're going to beat Tulane. I think Tulane's better than them. Potentially could beat Eastern Carolina. That's where I get 7. I don't think they're going to get SMU. Maybe USF. It's at USF, and I think USF gets better as the season goes on. So maybe that's 8. Maybe they could beat Temple and be 9.
I see the 3. I see them winning 3 games as I'm looking at the schedule right now. I see East Carolina, South Florida, and Temple. I don't think they beat Tulsa. I don't think they beat Navy.
So I think they will win those 3 games almost for sure. But I think that Navy or Tulsa, they will take one of those games.
So that puts them at 8. Saying that they win all their non-conference games.
They
should.
I
Texas Tech
do
is the
think
only question mark.
that Houston is a better team than most of the teams in the American. I just don't know how I feel about them because of how
I just don't like Dana Holgerson.
Fair enough.
All right. Tulane, the Green Wave. I am excited about Tulane.
I'm also excited about Tulane. And recruiting has improved from 76 to 69. Nice. And honestly, they're setting themselves up to be a power in the conference. They're making true investments in the program. They've just built a beautiful, and I mean beautiful, stadium. It's not huge, but it's really nice. It's the perfect size for them, being a private school in New Orleans, where the majority of the people in New Orleans are fans of LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And they've made investments in their practice facilities. They've been exciting to watch over the last few years. They've had exciting games. I think they have some really cool uniforms.
I was going to say, I think they have some of the coolest uniforms in the country.
And so, I mean, you know, kids look at that kind of thing. Like, sure, I think that at the end of the day, they're going to look at, you know, how good your program is, because Alabama has the most boring uniforms in the country and they're very good. But, you know, if that's something that you're between a couple schools and Tulsa or Tulane is one of the schools that you're between, that could be a tipping factor for them.
Yeah.
So good for them. What's their schedule like? I actually don't have a link for them.
Schedule, Oklahoma. They open the season home to Oklahoma. So that's a rough start. Then they play Morgan State at home, which win.
Yep.
At Ole Miss. That's their third non-conference game. Then they play home to UAB. So I'm thinking 2-2 and then non-conference. You get out of there with that.
I think they could lose that UAB game.
Okay, fair enough.
UAB's been one of the better teams in Conference USA.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying they will. I'm saying they could.
They could. Tulane should win that.
They should beat UAB, but they could lose it.
Conference schedule, they open at East Carolina, then home to Houston, at SMU, home to Cincinnati, at UCF, home to Tulsa, home to South Florida, and at Memphis.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what do you got? 7?
I do want to talk about their head coach. I know I always talk about head coaches during this. I think Willie Fritz is a great coach. I think he's going to be moving on to bigger, better things here soon. He was the head coach at Georgia Southern before and Sam Houston State. The Tulane was kind of perennial bottom feeders from what I've seen in their history. And they've, since he started, I think, he's going into his 6th season. He's really turned the program around. Yes. They've been more exciting. They made a bowl game in 3 straight years now, which they had never done in their entire history before. Never made a bowl game in 3 straight years. And I just think he's a good coach. So I like to put my money behind good coaches, especially in these smaller conferences where or not smaller in quotes, not the big Power 5 conferences. Right. I like to put it in the coaches.
I feel very similarly. I think Tulane is a team that you can bet on. I think of their schedule, they probably escape with 6 wins, but I think that moving forward, they could be an 8-win team pretty consistently.
I think you're in a good place if you're a Tulane fan, if there is any Tulane fans out there.
All right. Next up, South Florida. I was surprised that South Florida is here. What? I don't know how they're here.
I don't either. It's just Florida, I guess. I guess it's just because it's Florida.
I guess
there's just a crap ton of recruits in Florida.
But they need so much to succeed. They did just build a new practice facility, so I think that'll help recruiting some.
They need to build a stadium.
But they need their own damn stadium. We can go. I have a whole segment that I want to do on teams that play in NFL stadiums, but this is.
I've known you for a long time, Cody. I've known you for a long time, and the one thing that you are consistent about above everything else is that you hate college football teams that play in NFL stadiums.
I do. Because there's not many teams that play in NFL stadiums that have consistent success. And if that's your goal is to win games, then you don't do that. So I'm gonna not go so far into that.
I can tell you're already getting aggravated.
I'm fired up. And that is a subject that I am fired up about.
They've really taken a nosedive these past 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, they were really good winning 10 games 4 or 5 years ago. And
with,
it's just
Willie Taggart.
And the first year Charlie Strong, which was kind of just he was kind of just building off of Willie Taggart. Once he actually, in his second year, once he actually had some of his own guys, that's when it started going downhill.
Yep. So I think they have some,
and yet somehow he got the Texas job.
They've only had a program since 1997. So I think that's something that they have for them. I think they could be heading in the right direction with Jeff Scott. I think it could be moving there. There's buzz around their campus about building their own on-campus stadium. There's been buzz for a few years, but I think it's now becoming like something of an issue with hiring coaches and keeping coaches. Is that they don't have their own stadium. I don't have much else to say. Do you want to take a look at their schedule?
Yeah. They got a pretty brutal non-conference. They got one easy game where they host Florida A&M. That should be a win. But that might honestly be one of like 2 wins they have this season, because they play at NC State to open the season out. Then they play home to Florida, and their final non-conference game is at BYU.
And they play home to Florida, and that's not going to be a home game for them.
No, it's not.
There will be more Florida fans at that game than there are 100%. Central Florida or South Florida fans. Sorry. I don't see them winning. I'm looking at this. I don't think
at East Carolina, Temple maybe, because they got a pretty. They play at SMU, home to Tulsa, home to Temple, at East Carolina, home to Houston, Cincinnati at home, at Tulane, at UCF. I think
they take 2 conference games,
maybe
at the most.
Maybe, because SMU, they're not as good as SMU. Tulsa, I don't think they're as good as Tulsa. Definitely not as good as Cincinnati, UCF. I don't think they're as good as Tulane. And even if I'm down on Houston, they're not better than Houston. So East Carolina and Temple are the only arguments on that schedule.
All right. Well, sorry. We've been dogging on the American.
Not all of them. We're excited about Tulane.
Yeah.
I'm excited about Tulsa.
So you want to move on?
Yeah. Other Florida.
Yeah. The Golden Knights.
The Fighting Gus Malzahn's now.
Yeah. I feel good about UCF.
I'm really excited about that hire.
I am too. I thought that was a good hire. Honestly, I thought that was a better hire than the Tennessee hire. Tennessee just should have hired just Gus Malzahn and be like, all right, welcome. Because Tennessee took
Josh Heupel.
Yep, from Central Florida. Central Florida got the better deal there.
Yeah.
They
upgraded.
They're up in recruiting
significantly,
which I think is a direct attribute of
Gus Malzahn.
I will say that they've been rated for coaches over the last few years. So development of players is definitely something that I think we're going to see an issue with. But I think that Gus Malzahn, we could see him be there for at least 3 years, 2 to 3 years. And I think that's going to help.
I think he's going to use this as a job to get him back up into the Power 5 ranks.
I do too.
And I think it's going to work. I think they're going to be really good the next 4 or 5 years, however long he's here.
I agree.
He'll move on and take another bigger job. And
they've got Boise State at the Bounce House. I love that they changed the name of the stadium to the Bounce House. That's great. Fantastic.
That's an exciting opening game against Boise State.
So it's a really exciting opening game. I don't know that they win.
I haven't looked too much into Boise State this year. I know they're going to have a new head coach going into this year, but
yeah, so 2 new head coaches. I could see it being a toss up.
Yeah.
Then they get Bethune and Cookman, so I think they win that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then they play at Louisville, who they could win that. They could win that. Game.
That's an interesting game.
They get Navy at Navy. Then they have East Carolina at home, so I think they win both of those. Then they're at Cincinnati, and I think being at Cincinnati gives Cincinnati the edge there, but I think it's a tough game.
Yeah,
for both.
That's a big game.
Then
they turn around and play Memphis.
And I think they lose to Memphis this year. Then they got Temple, or at Temple, and then got Tulane. I think they could lose to SMU. Then they play UConn, and you know, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I could see them being a 9-win team this year. Maybe even 10 if another game goes their way somewhere along.
If they win that Boise State and one of those 2 Boise State Louisville games.
Yep.
I could see it for sure.
And,
all right.
Yeah.
3 more teams. You want to move on?
Yeah, three teams left. Let's try to get through these.
SMU.
The Pony Express. I think they're cheating again. No, I'm joking.
They just got back to relevance.
Well, how do you think they got there?
It took them 30 years to dig themselves back from the death penalty. And they're finally back.
There are no rules.
Yeah.
So I really like SMU. I feel confident. They've got great facilities. They're not just good facilities. They've got lower Power 5 level facilities. They're good. Mm-hmm. A really nice stadium, really nice recruiting area footprint. They've got the 51st ranked recruiting class, which is up from last year. 70. And I think that they have like some history of winning. They're getting like guys back on campus from when they, did pay their players. They're getting some of those guys back on campus to like rep for SMU, which I think helps. They need to do that. They need to involve alumni. Despite it's not the alumni's fault that, they're kids and they're accepting money.
Yeah.
It was the school's fault. It wasn't theirs. They play Abilene Christian, North Texas, and then they're at Louisiana. So I think
Louisiana Tech.
Louisiana Tech. My bad. I think they win those 3 games.
The Louisiana Tech game's interesting because their head coach, Sonny Dykes, used to coach there.
Yep. And then they're at TCU, and that could be an interesting game depending on how good TCU is / how bad TCU is.
Have faith in Gary Patterson.
Yeah, I think TCU wins that, but I think SMU could make it interesting, especially being that, they're such very close schools.
Yeah. Both religious private schools in Texas.
I would love to see that become like an annual rivalry. I think that'd be really cool. Like
it's like the Holy War, Christians against the Methodists.
The Fort Worth rivalry. I don't know what you call it, but they're both.
Call it the Holy War. Holy War.
Yeah. All right. The Holy War.
The Methodists versus the Christians.
Versus the Christians.
Christians. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that could be really good. Then they've got South Florida at Navy, Tulane at Houston, at Memphis, Central Florida at home, at Cincinnati, Tulsa at home, and then the American Conference Championship.
So I don't think SMU is winning the AAC. I don't think they're in the top tier of the AAC. I think they're just below those top 3 teams, or 2 teams, if you want to say Memphis and Cincinnati. Maybe throw UCF in there. I think they're a good AAC team who's going to upset one of the top dogs. I could see them beating Cincinnati, beating Memphis. I could see them win UCF. I could see them winning one of those games. I just don't see them winning the AAC.
I could see them starting out 3-1 and then rattling off 4 wins to be 7-1.
Yeah.
And then have a tough game at Memphis, maybe win, maybe lose. And then I just don't see them rolling through Memphis, Central Florida, and Cincinnati all back to back and getting that. I just don't see that happening. Maybe, but I just don't see it.
But if you're an SMU fan, you're just happy to be relevant again.
You're just happy to win a game. Good for them. And honestly, keep paying your players. It's good for you.
It's gonna be legal soon anyway. So
yeah, it's gonna be legal. Like, you can be back in this. Like, truthfully, you guys could buy your way into a Power 5 and then get a national championship.
I was gonna say you could just be in the national championship conversation.
You Ohio State, buy your players.
I think they beat BYU that year in the championship game, 83, 82, something like that.
Have a national championship?
Well, it's probably been stripped now, but I don't know. I'll look it up if you want to start talking about
Let's start talking about Memphis. They have the national rank of 46, which is up from 66. The top of this conference is really up in recruiting from where they have been, which is exciting. And honestly, it's good for the conference.
Yeah.
I think that Memphis they've kind of developed themselves into a brand of the American Conference. They've been consistently good for the last 6-7 years. They won an American Athletic Championship in 2019. They've kind of lost some coaches here and there, and they've been a stepping stone, which is tough. But I think that they could. They actually sold out their first game ever in the Liberty Bowl. First game that they ever sold out in 2019. So I think Memphis's golden years as well are here.
Yes.
I think Memphis is here to stay for a while too. They're recruiting well. They get great kids in the transfer portal. I don't have many complaints about this team.
I like their head coach. I like how they hired from within after Mike Norvell went to Florida State.
It makes so much sense.
It does. Continue. Just keep it going. Just keep the culture, keep the program going with what was working.
Yep. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
I think potentially Memphis could be 4-0 to start the season. Their tough game in their non-conference is Mississippi State, and I don't think Mississippi State's that good. I don't know that Memphis can exactly beat Mississippi State at Mississippi State, but we'll see. I think it could happen. They've got the Nichols Colonels, which is silly. Don't have double L's there.
It's just a stupid name.
Arkansas State, Fighting Butch Joneses. Then they've got UTSA, which UTSA is actually getting better, but they're not going to beat Memphis. And then they're at Temple, at Tulsa, so they get kind of a road trip to start the conference season. Then they've got Navy at home. Then they're at the bounce house of UCF. They've got SMU and East Carolina at home. They're at Houston, and then they get Tulane at home. So I see them winning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They could hit 10 wins this season.
I think it's them and Cincinnati. Those are the two teams that one of them is going to win 10 games and they're going to win the AAC, and the other is probably going to win 9, maybe even 10 games as well, and it's going to be in that conversation as well. I do want to. You were talking earlier. I was looking up. They didn't win. They have a claimed national championship in 1982.
Okay.
Penn State was technically the national. SMU is what we're talking. We're going back to that conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Interesting.
To just kind of add on to what you were saying about this kind of being the golden era of Memphis. I found this very interesting. I mentioned with another school, Temple, I think. 1960 to 2002, they made one bowl game. Memphis did. It was 1971 Pasadena Bowl. They've made a bowl game now in 7 straight seasons and 12 and 20 years. So this is by far the best stretch in the school's history.
Yep. And they are one team that doesn't have an on-campus stadium that I'm not upset with.
Because there's so much history to the Liberty Bowl.
Yep.
I mean, it's not a pro stadium. It's not an NFL stadium.
It made to be an NFL stadium, but
yeah.
Never
But didn't there was an XFL Memphis team that played there, I think.
Yeah, they did. That's irrelevant.
Yeah. Final school.
Yeah.
Your very own Cincinnati Bearcats.
My Cincinnati Bearcats. I've waited a long time for Cincinnati to be back in this spot. I've been a Cincinnati fan since I was a kid. So I get a little passionate when talking about them. They were ranked 42, which is actually their second best recruiting class of all time. Their first best was in 2019. They had 41. And their current national rank for 2022, did you see this, Dan? 17.
Okay. All right.
A goal for me for their class would be to stay in the top 25 for their class. I don't think it's going to happen.
Never going to happen.
But I'd love for it to.
Never going to happen. This is their ceiling.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it last episode. This is their ceiling. It's a great ceiling. It's a hell of a ceiling. But this is their ceiling. As long as Ohio State is in their same state.
I tend to agree with you. I'm just really hopeful. Like, I really think that
I'm not saying you shouldn't be.
Luke Fickell is a really, really good coach.
Enjoy him while he's still there.
Yep, that's what I'm doing. They've improved their stadium. Their stadium is one of the best in the conference. It's a beautiful old stadium. You don't get old stadiums like UC's.
It's right in the middle of campus too, which I love.
I do too. It's my favorite part about the stadium. You like to go from class to class. You walk. You walk through the stadium. There's a dining hall in the stadium. There's a dorm attached to the stadium. I mean, it's just
part of campus.
Yeah, it is. It is a really cool part of campus. If you ever get a chance to go to a game there, highly suggest it. Their practice facilities are subpar for the conference, in my opinion. They're working on developing that, but they're a little landlocked and have issues with space for a practice facility.
Similar to Temple's problem being in the city. And there's not a lot of places to expand.
Yeah. So they do currently have a practice facility. It's a nice practice facility. It's an outdoor practice facility. And I think what they're eventually going to do is take that. They have 2 practice facilities kind of that sit next to each other. And I think they're going to take both of those, knock them down, and build an indoor practice facility and use the stadium for outdoor practice.
Makes sense.
End up doing that. Nothing's been announced on that, but that's where things are leaning towards and working on, where they've been trying to improve that for the last few years, and they need to if they want to sustain this winning program. In my opinion, they've got the money. They should do it. Probably. All right. So
from when I was researching, I didn't realize how kind of irrelevant they were pre 2000. Really, they were completely irrelevant. Never really went to a bowl game even, and
pre Mark D'Antonio. Mark D'Antonio was really the catalyst. At Cincinnati. Yeah, catalyst. Sorry.
Cataclysm.
I like that. He's the catalyst
so now, but since then they've made a bowl game in 17 of 24 seasons, which is, I mean, outstanding considering how much Tommy Tuberville wrecked the program and the bad years that they've had. They still made a bowl game 17 out of 24. So
and so I mean, it's a solid program, especially having a good basketball team and being located in Cincinnati. They have a lot of funding and support from corporations, which helps them a lot. That some of the small market, smaller city teams in the American don't get.
Looking at you, Tulsa.
Yes, looking at you, Tulsa. So I think that bodes well for them. The recruiting class is not complete for this year. They're looking to add like 2 or 3 more 4-stars, which would be.
I noticed they didn't have any 4-stars currently.
They have 2 4-stars in their current recruiting class, I believe.
I show 0. 24 total commits, 24 3-stars.
Huh. They have one guy then, I think, that has maybe like made a commitment but not made it official or something like that.
No.
For the 2022 class.
Oh, you're talking 2022. I thought you were talking for this year.
No.
Yeah, they do have okay. It's a D tackle out of Dayton.
Yeah.
Went to Alter.
Yep. Yeah, he's a good kid. Really, really talented kid is what I mean. But I feel excited about Cincinnati. They start their season off with Miami of Ohio, and I think that's a dub. And then they get Murray State, and that's a dub. And then they get Indiana at Indiana, which I think is a tough game.
It's going to be a ranked matchup early in the season.
It should be a ranked matchup. It could be close to a top 10 matchup, probably a top 10 matchup. If things stay the way they are. Athlon, Sports Illustrated, and someone else had them, and 24/7 Sports had them rated. I think it was 6, 7, and 7, respectively. Cincinnati and Indiana's consistently been in a bunch of top 10s,
like 10 to 15. I've seen 15.
Them. So yeah. we could be seeing a top 10 matchup in September. That'd be neat. And then Cincinnati, if they win that game, then they're really going into Notre Dame, and that's probably also going to be a top 10 matchup. I don't think they win at Notre Dame, unfortunately. I'm not holding. As a fan, I'm holding out hope. As a realist, I'm not. I think they could win at Indiana. I don't think they have a shot at Notre Dame.
They have a shot.
Yeah, they have a shot. It's just not as. I say Indiana is like.
They're going to be the more. I think they're going to be the more experienced team going because Notre Dame's losing their starting quarterback. I know they're losing several defensive players. So.
Yeah, something to note, though, is that Cincinnati's defensive coordinator is now the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. He left Cincinnati to become the defensive coordinator at.
Did all the players leave with him, too?
No, not all the players left with him, but I think
the defense is damn good.
He knows the offensive scheme and all the players at Cincinnati, so he can coach them really well for that game. So I think that is
I'm trying to give you some hope here.
I know you're trying to give me hope. I'm trying to like temper expectations, man. Like I'm going in thinking, yeah, we can win that game, but like I'm trying to like tone myself down because that whole week I'm gonna be like, fuck Notre Dame, we're gonna beat their ass, PTA. Oh
God. We have our clip for social now.
Yeah, we have a clip for the social media.
You want to move into their conference schedule? Just move on.
Yeah, let's move into that.
Just move on.
So they're at Temple, they've got Temple at home, and then they get Central Florida at home. So Temple is an easy win. Central Florida is a tougher win, I think, but I do think they win that game. They're at Navy. I think being at Navy makes the game a little harder, especially if it rains, because it tends to rain every time Cincinnati plays in Annapolis. But I think
they have a pretty easy schedule, actually. They don't play Memphis.
That was my big note, is that they don't have Memphis in the regular season, which really helps.
Mm-hmm.
Because if both of those teams came in like undefeated in the conference?
I was just gonna say I could see Cincinnati rolling in undefeated through the conference. Like not overall because they're gonna lose to Notre Dame more than likely, but I think in conference they should be undefeated.
I agree.
You get UCF. Your toughest games are UCF and SMU, and you have both those at home. So
And that's huge.
Yeah.
Huge, because they haven't lost a game at home in 3 years. Actually, since Luke Fickell's first year. They've been very good at home. So
good signs. Good signs. They should
very
be
good
back
signs.
in the A. They
Very
should be
good
back
signs.
in the
I feel
AAC
good.
championship.
Feel very good about Cincinnati's prospects moving forward. Even if Luke Fickell leaves, I feel good. Because whoever takes over is going to take over a very good team.
As long as it's not Tommy Tuberville again.
Hopefully not. Maybe it'll be Gus Malzahn.
No, he's too busy running a Senate race or something.
Maybe he should talk about what he knows, blowing 52 points after a half to South Florida.
Ask him the real questions. Nobody ever asked the politicians the real questions. How the hell did you blow a 52-point lead?
Oh,
South
no,
Florida.
It wasn't a 52-point lead. It was a 3-point lead. They lost 57 or 55 to 3. Yeah. It was they were winning. It was 0. It was 3-0 at the half, and then Cincinnati's winning, and then USF is like, "Hey, nope," and just flips over a table.
What? They scored 55 in the second half alone.
Yeah, it was something dumb like that.
Jesus.
It may not have been quite 50, but it was like 50 points in the second half.
Yeah. Is that the game where he walked off the field, flipped off a fan?
I might have been.
That's all I remember Tommy Tuberville for is he flipped off a fan walking off the field.
Well, that kind of wraps up our conversation. I appreciate you all listening to me ramble about my favorite conference. And Dan, I appreciate your conversation as well.
Who do you want to talk about next week?
I feel like we should probably
jump back into the Power 5.
Who do we have left on the Power 5? Do we have
ACC and Pac-12, I believe.
I believe
it's ACC, Pac-12, Conference USA, Mountain West.
Let's do the Mountain West next week.
Okay.
So then we can finish it alternating between Power 5 and G5.
Sounds good. All right. Well, look forward to that, everyone. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll catch you next time.
Good one.